Growing up, I always knew my older sister, Claire 35F, was the golden child. It wasn't just in the way our parents treated her, it was in everything. If Claire wanted something, she got it. If she caused a problem, someone else took the blame. She could cry on command, twist any situation in her favor, and somehow make herself the victim in every story. It didn't matter what she did. Our parents always had an excuse for her behavior. I spent years watching her manipulate people, but I learned early on that calling her out never worked. It only made me look jealous or overly sensitive. So I stopped trying. I focused on building my own life, got through college, and met my husband, Jake 34M. He was everything Claire wasn't: kind, steady, and honest. I thought that marrying him would mean finally having a family that wasn't built on favoritism. I was wrong. From the moment I introduced Jake to my mother-in-law, Linda, she made it painfully clear that she preferred Claire over me. "She's so charming," Linda would say after any family gathering. "She has such a great energy. She really knows how to work a room." It was always about Claire. My own mother-in-law talked about her like she was the real catch, like maybe Jake had married the wrong sister. She even joked once that if he had met Claire first, things would have gone differently. At first, I ignored it. I told myself it was just an innocent comment. But then Linda started inviting Claire to events without telling me. She invited Claire to our engagement party. Fine, whatever. She invited Claire to our bridal shower. A little weird, but okay. Then, without asking me, she made Claire a bridesmaid at my own wedding. I found out at the rehearsal dinner. I showed up, expecting to go over the ceremony, only to find Claire standing in the lineup with the other bridesmaids, smiling like she belonged there. Linda had taken it upon herself to fix my wedding party by adding Claire in at the last minute. The next day, Claire showed up in a dress that was barely a shade off from white. She spent the whole night making snide comments, acting like she and Jake had some secret history. You know, she'd say with a smirk, "Jake and I actually used to hang out a lot back in the day." That never happened. She and Jake had met a handful of times, always in group settings, and they barely spoke. But she said it just often enough, in just the right tone, to make people wonder. After the wedding, it only got worse. Linda started inviting Claire over to our house without telling me. I'd come home from work expecting a quiet evening, only to find Claire sitting in my kitchen, drinking wine with my mother-in-law like she lived there. If I said anything, Linda would act confused. "Oh, I thought you'd be happy to have her here. Family should come first, right?" When Claire needed money, she went straight to Linda, who then came to me. "She's going through a hard time," Linda would say. "Can't you just help her out a little? Your family?" I refused. But that didn't stop Claire from taking advantage of Linda. She borrowed money constantly, made big promises to pay it back, and then shockingly, never did. I finally snapped when Linda started insisting that Claire should come on a family vacation instead of me. That's when I realized this wasn't going to stop. Claire had wormed her way into my marriage, into my home, into my mother-in-law's good graces. No matter what I did, Linda always took her side. Then, Claire crossed a line I couldn't ignore. When my son was born, Linda started talking about godparents. I assumed it would be a discussion between me and Jake, but instead, I found out after the fact that Linda had already made the decision for us. She had invited Claire to be my son's godmother, without asking me. That was it. I told Linda, point blank, that if she kept choosing Claire over me, there would be consequences. She didn't listen. She doubled down. "She's like a daughter to me," Linda said, like that made it okay. That's when I decided, if my mother-in-law thought Claire was such a perfect choice, then she could have her. I wasn't going to fight anymore. I was going to step back. I was going to let Linda see for herself exactly who Claire was, and I was going to let her learn the hard way. If my mother-in-law wanted Claire to be her golden child, I was more than happy to let her have her. No more fighting. No more trying to prove anything. I stepped back completely and let Linda handle Claire however she wanted. And she did. With me out of the way, Linda started spending even more time with Claire. She invited her over constantly, planned spa days, and even started taking Claire out to brunch every other weekend. It wasn't long before Claire started staying over at Linda's house regularly, sometimes for days at a time. It didn't take long for the cracks to start showing. At first, it was small things. Linda would mention that Claire forgot to show up for dinner plans or canceled last minute because something more exciting came up. She never seemed to notice how one-sided their relationship was. Claire only showed up when there was something in it for her. Then came the money problems. Claire had always been a user, but now that Linda was her main source of support, the requests for help started piling up. It was always some kind of emergency. She needed a little money to cover rent. She had car trouble and didn't have enough for repairs. She had a job opportunity but needed some new clothes to make a good impression. Linda, of course, gave her everything she asked for. At first, she acted like it wasn't a big deal, but little by little, the stress started to show. She mentioned feeling a little tight on money but brushed it off, saying she was just helping family. Jake started noticing. He saw how his mother was constantly drained, always stressed, but he didn't connect the dots right away. He assumed she was just overwhelmed with day-to-day life. He never considered that it might have something to do with Claire. I didn't say a word. Then, Linda started relying on Claire for little favors, things I used to help with. Grocery shopping, picking up dry cleaning, taking care of small errands. Claire always agreed enthusiastically, but she rarely followed through. Groceries were forgotten. Dry cleaning sat at the shop for weeks. Appointments were missed. Linda made excuses every time. "Oh, she just got caught up with something. She's so busy these days." I just nodded. Then, the real test came, babysitting. Linda had always insisted that Claire should be a big part of my son's life, so I set up an opportunity for her to prove it. One afternoon, Linda was supposed to pick up my son from daycare, but at the last minute, she got held up with something and called Claire to do it instead. Claire agreed, and then she forgot. I got a panicked call from Linda an hour after daycare closed. The teachers had been trying to reach Claire, but she wasn't answering. Linda was frantic, calling her over and over again with no response. By the time Linda got there, the staff had already called the police. Officers arrived just as she was explaining the situation. Claire, when questioned, blamed the daycare for miscommunication, but the staff's statements told a different story. Though no formal charges were filed, Claire was issued a strong warning, and Linda was shaken. When Linda finally got a hold of Claire, she acted like it was no big deal. She blamed the daycare, claiming they gave her the wrong pickup time. Linda repeated the excuse like it was gospel. I didn't argue. I just let it sit. After that, more things started happening. Claire borrowed a designer bag from Linda, then lost it. When Linda asked about it, Claire shrugged it off, saying she must have left it at a friend's house. She promised to help Linda set up for a family gathering, then showed up 2 hours late, acting like nothing happened. She borrowed Linda's car and returned it with an empty gas tank and a parking ticket, shoved in the glove compartment. Still, Linda made excuses. She just has a lot on her plate. She's trying her best. She doesn't mean to be irresponsible. But then Claire went too far. One evening, Linda checked her bank statement and noticed something off. There were multiple charges she didn't recognize. Hundreds of dollars spent at clothing stores, restaurants, and even a spa. She called the bank in a panic, thinking someone had stolen her card. They told her the charges were made with her physical card. Her stomach dropped. The only person who had access to it? Claire. She confronted Claire immediately. At first, Claire turned on the tears, promising she had changed. She swore she was working on herself, even making a show of returning a small portion of the money she had stolen. But when Linda hesitated, Claire's mask slipped. Suddenly, she wasn't remorseful anymore. She was furious, playing the victim and blaming everyone but herself. And Linda, she started to waver. Even after everything, even after being stolen from, she still wanted to believe Claire was just misunderstood. That's when I knew it was only a matter of time before reality caught up with her. So I waited, because the fall was coming. And this time, I wasn't going to do a thing to stop it. It didn't take long for things to spiral. After the stolen credit card incident, my mother-in-law should have learned her lesson, but Claire had a way of twisting reality. She showed up at Linda's house, in tears, claiming she was going through a hard time and had no other choice. She spun a sob story about overdue bills, an emergency situation, and how she was too embarrassed to ask for help the right way. Linda wavered. She was furious, but at the same time, she still wanted to believe Claire was just a good person who had made a bad decision. She let it go with nothing more than a stern warning. Big mistake. Days later, Linda checked her accounts again. This time, the damage was worse. Claire had taken out a line of credit using Linda's information. Thousands of dollars in purchases, mostly essentials like rent, bills, and groceries, but also luxury items, including clothing, electronics, and a weekend getaway she later tried to justify as self-care. That's when Linda cracked. For the first time since this all started, she confided in Jake. She admitted she didn't know what to do, that she felt trapped. Claire had taken advantage of her, and now she didn't know how to fix it. Jake finally saw what I had been trying to tell him all along. He didn't say much, just nodded, took a deep breath, and told his mother to stop giving Claire chances. She didn't listen. Not even a week later, Linda let Claire babysit my son again. It wasn't planned. Linda had agreed to take him for the afternoon while I ran errands, but at the last minute she got called away for something. Instead of calling me or Jake, she decided Claire could handle it. Claire took him to the park and lost him. A complete stranger found him wandering alone near the parking lot and called the police. By the time Linda and I got there, officers were already questioning Claire. She was crying, rambling about how she only looked away for a second. But witnesses told a different story. She had been glued to her phone, too distracted to notice that my son had wandered off. Linda turned pale. Even then, she still tried to defend Claire. She didn't mean to, she muttered, almost to herself. But as the days passed, as Claire avoided responsibility and twisted the situation, Linda began to waver. It wasn't until another incident, a stolen credit card, another betrayal, that Linda finally understood. Claire wasn't just irresponsible. She was dangerous. I didn't yell. I didn't cause a scene. I just looked at Linda and asked, still think she's the better choice? She didn't answer. Claire, of course, had excuses. She was just distracted. She didn't mean any harm. She felt terrible and would never let anything happen on purpose. For once, Linda didn't rush to defend her. She stood there, staring at Claire like she was seeing her for the first time. Then Claire snapped. Instead of apologizing, she lashed out at Linda. She accused her of never really loving her, of always choosing other people over her, of abandoning her when she needed support. It was a full-blown tantrum, complete with crocodile tears and dramatic accusations. Linda, still shaken from the police scare, finally snapped back. She yelled at Claire for the first time. Not a soft, motherly reprimand. A real, full-on, fed-up explosion of anger. Years of enabling and excuses boiled over at once. Claire didn't like that. She stormed off, still shouting about how she was done with this family, acting like she was the victim in all of this. Jake stepped in. He looked at his mother and told her, flat out, that Claire was done. She was no longer allowed near our child. Ever. Linda didn't argue. The next day, she showed up at my house, sat down at my kitchen table, and for the first time, said the words I never thought I'd hear. I was wrong. I didn't rub it in. I didn't say I told you so. I just let her sit with the weight of her own mistakes. Because finally, she was learning. And this time, I wasn't going to stop it. Claire didn't take the fallout well. After my mother-in-law finally snapped at her, she did what she always did. She played the victim. Within days, she started spreading lies. She told anyone who would listen that Linda had abandoned her, that she was being punished for one little mistake, and that I had been the one poisoning the family against her. Relatives started talking, Some took Claire's side, saying Linda had been too harsh. Others stayed out of it. A few, who had known Claire's ways for years, saw through her act immediately. But the damage was done. People whispered about how Linda had favored the wrong daughter for years, how she had let Claire get away with everything, and was only now realizing her mistake. Meanwhile, Claire's problems only got worse. With Linda cutting her off financially, she started looking for new sources of money. First, she tried guilting other family members, claiming she was struggling, that she just needed a little help to get back on her feet. That didn't last long. People started realizing the pattern. The same sob story, the same excuses. One by one, they stopped answering her calls. Desperate, she tried going back to Linda, showed up at her house unannounced, acting like nothing had happened, as if she hadn't stolen from her, lied to her, and put her grandson in danger. Linda didn't budge. For the first time, she held her ground. Claire demanded money. Linda refused. Claire tried to guilt trip her. Linda didn't fall for it. Then, Claire got nasty. She accused Linda of choosing me over her, of letting me ruin their family. That was it. Linda told Claire she was done. No more chances. No more bailouts. No more excuses. For the first time in her life, Claire was facing real consequences. Jake had been getting increasingly frustrated for months. He had quietly warned Linda when Claire first started borrowing money, and he noticed how drained she looked whenever Claire was around. But after the stolen credit card incident, he finally put his foot down. If Linda ever let Claire back in, we were done. No more second chances. No contact with our son. No involvement in our lives. Linda didn't argue. Instead, she started doing something I never expected. She actually tried to fix things with me. She started small, an apology, without any excuses, an offer to help with our son, but only if I was comfortable. Invitations that actually included me, instead of just Claire. For the first time, she listened when I spoke. Then, Claire made one last mistake. A few months later, we had a small family gathering at Linda's house. Just close family. Nothing major. Claire wasn't invited. That didn't stop her from showing up. She waltzed in like she belonged there, smiling like nothing had happened. She tried to work the room, acting like she was the victim in all of this. People ignored her. That's when she turned on Linda. Loudly, in front of everyone, she accused her of betraying her own daughter, called her a cold-hearted old woman for turning her back on family. It was like watching years of resentment explode at once. Linda didn't even flinch. She stood up, looked Claire dead in the eye, and told her she was no longer welcome. It was over. Claire stormed out, slamming the door behind her. That was the last time anyone saw her at a family event. For the first time in years, my family felt safe. No more unexpected visits. No more manipulation. No more chaos. Linda admitted she had wasted years believing in Claire. She regretted every time she had taken her side, every moment she had let Claire make me feel unwelcome. But it was too late to fix the past. Claire hit rock bottom fast. With no one left to enable her, she bounced from job to job, burned through friendships, and eventually got cut off from most of the family. She tried reaching out to me once, a long-winded email about how she was trying to change and how family should stick together. I didn't respond. Jake changed, too. He became more protective of me and our son, setting firmer boundaries, making it clear that nothing like this would ever happen again. And I realized something. I never had to fight for Linda's approval. I never had to argue, prove anything, or force anyone to see the truth. All I had to do was step back. She chose Claire, and she learned the hard way. Claire was unraveling. With my mother-in-law finally standing firm, she had lost her biggest source of money and support. She couldn't manipulate her way back into our lives, so she turned to the next best thing, extended family. Suddenly, distant relatives started reaching out, talking about how heartless it was to abandon family, how Claire was struggling and needed help. The story Claire spun was wild. She told everyone that Linda and I had conspired to ruin her life, that we had turned Jake against her, and that she was left with nothing because of our selfishness. Some people believed her. A few even reached out to Jake, urging him to talk some sense into his wife. They thought I was being too harsh, and that family should always try to make things right. Jake didn't respond. Then came the final family gathering, the one where everything finally exploded. We were at a cousin's house, just an ordinary get-together, when someone casually mentioned to Linda that she shouldn't have picked sides. Linda, who had stayed quiet through months of Claire's drama, finally snapped. Right there. In the middle of the gathering, she went on a full-blown rant about how much Claire had manipulated her, how she had stolen from her, lied to her, and nearly put her grandson in danger. The room went silent. For the first time, people saw it from Linda's perspective. They stopped seeing Claire as the victim and started seeing her for what she was, a liar who had used people for years. But Claire wasn't done yet. Since Linda was no longer an option, she went after someone new, our wealthy aunt. Claire suddenly started cozying up to her, dropping hints about how difficult life had been, and how much she admired how our aunt had always been there for her. It was obvious what she was doing. She needed a new financial lifeline. Then came the fake apology. Out of nowhere, Claire reached out to me. She claimed she wanted to make amends and that she missed having a sister, but she never apologized to Linda. She didn't even mention what she had done to our family. She just wanted me to forgive her, so she could start rewriting history, playing the role of the misunderstood sister, while conveniently leaving out all the damage she had caused. I ignored her. And then, the real bomb dropped. Linda got a text from an unknown number, a recording. It was Claire, trash-talking her to other family members, calling her a pathetic old woman, saying she had been too stupid to realize she was being used. The person who sent the recording? A relative who had finally seen through Claire's act. That was it. Linda was done being silent. She took the recording and sent it to the entire extended family group chat with one message for those still defending Claire. Listen to this. The moment people heard the recording, the first cracks in Claire's defense started to show. Some relatives immediately distanced themselves, while others still tried to justify her actions. But as time passed and Claire kept slipping up, one by one, people started seeing the truth. Support for Claire didn't collapse overnight, it crumbled piece by piece. People who had been on the fence, who had believed her sob stories, suddenly realized she had been lying all along. And Claire? Instead of apologizing, she doubled down. She went on a furious text rampage, calling Linda and me jealous, bitter, and controlling. She accused us of ruining her life and being obsessed with her. That's when Jake stepped in. He wrote one simple message in the group chat. This is why she'll never be around my wife or my son again. She's not misunderstood. She's just a bad person. No one defended her after that. One by one, we distanced ourselves. Me, Jake, Linda. Some relatives still believed Claire's sob stories at first, but over time, as her lies unraveled, even they stopped answering her calls. For the first time in years, Claire had no one left to manipulate. And then, a month later, someone spotted her on social media, begging for money. She had made a dramatic post about how she was being unfairly treated by her family, how she had been cut off for no reason and just needed a little support to get back on her feet. Nobody donated. People had finally seen the truth. And Linda? She changed. She started making small gestures, inviting me to lunch, actually asking for my opinion, showing up for my son in ways she never had before. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to fight for a place in my own family. Linda made her choice. She picked my sister. She learned the hard way. And now, I don't have to prove anything to anyone. A full year has passed since Claire was cut off. She's completely out of our lives. No texts, no calls, no surprise visits. It's like she never existed. I haven't seen or spoken to her since the last family blow-up, and neither has my mother-in-law. But Claire? She hasn't changed. Without Linda funding her lifestyle, she moved on to a new group of people, acquaintances who didn't know her history. She latched onto them the same way she used to latch onto family, spinning her usual sob stories, playing the victim, and getting them to pay for her dinners, loan her money, and bail her out of whatever mess she got herself into. It worked for a while. Then, just like before, she burned through those relationships. People started realizing the pattern, the fake apologies, the endless excuses, the way she always needed help but never seemed to help anyone else. One by one, they dropped her. Meanwhile, Linda has completely changed her tune. A year ago, she would have defended Claire no matter what. Now, she warns other family members not to trust her. It's a complete 180. At gatherings, if someone mentions Claire, Linda doesn't get quiet or try to defend her. She just shakes her head and says, "Some people never change." She finally gets it. Jake has changed too. He's more protective of me now, more aware of boundaries when it comes to family. If someone tries to push us into something we don't want, he shuts it down immediately. No hesitation. Before, he used to avoid conflict, not wanting to get in the middle. Now, he doesn't hesitate to make it clear where we stand. And Linda? She's more respectful than she's ever been. She no longer invites unwanted guests, no longer dismisses my concerns, no longer makes excuses for Claire. And then something happened that I never expected. One day, out of nowhere, Linda sat me down and apologized. Not just a quick sorry to smooth things over. A real, genuine apology. For the favoritism. For making me feel like I wasn't good enough. For dismissing me. For choosing Claire over and over again, even when it was clear she was in the wrong. I never thought I'd hear those words from her, but she meant it. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to fight for her approval. I didn't feel like I had to compete for a place in my own family. And then Claire made one last mistake. A few months ago, she tried to crash another family event. She wasn't invited, but that didn't stop her from showing up, acting like she belonged there, like nothing had happened. She didn't even make it through the front door. Someone told her to leave, and when she refused, they had her escorted out. And the ultimate karma? That wealthy Aunt Claire had tried to latch onto? She found out about the group chat scandal, the recording, the lies, the manipulation, and cut Claire off too. With no one left to leech off, Claire started hopping from job to job, burning bridges everywhere she went. She went from blaming me and Linda to blaming the whole family, then blaming society, then blaming bad luck. But at the end of the day, there was no one left to blame but herself. Meanwhile, life without Claire has been peaceful. For the first time in years, a holiday dinner went smoothly. No fights, no tension, no passive-aggressive comments, just a normal family meal. Without Claire, everything feels lighter. The constant manipulation, the drama, the stress, it's gone. And that's when I realized something. I never needed to fight for Linda's approval. I never had to argue. Never had to prove anything. All I had to do was step back. Linda thought my sister was the better choice. She paid the price for that mistake. Now, she finally understands why I walked away first. A year of silence. That's how long it had been since Claire was fully cut off. No texts. No phone calls. No surprise appearances at family gatherings. It was peaceful. And then she came back. One evening, Linda got a message. It was Claire. After months of radio silence, she had suddenly reappeared. This time, not just begging for forgiveness, but claiming to be in real trouble. She wrote a long-winded message about how she had nowhere to go, how she had been abandoned by everyone, and that she just needed a fresh start. She painted herself as the victim. Life had been unfair to her. She had made mistakes, but she had learned her lesson. And of course, she needed a place to stay. It was classic Claire. At first, Linda didn't mention it. But a few days later, she brought it up, casually, like she was just thinking out loud. That's when I saw it. For the first time in a long time, she was hesitating. Claire's grip on her had weakened, but it wasn't gone. The guilt was creeping back in. The old instinct to fix things was still there, buried under everything that had happened. She was tempted. Jake didn't even let her finish the conversation. He shut it down immediately. He reminded her exactly what had happened the last time she trusted Claire, how she had stolen from her, manipulated her, lied to her face, how she had nearly put our son in danger. Linda didn't argue, but she also didn't say no right away. I stayed quiet. I knew that if I pushed, if I told her what to do, she might push back. This had to be her decision. Then, something unexpected happened. One of Linda's close friends reached out, someone she had known for years. The message was simple: be careful. Claire has been telling people she plans to get back in by playing your emotions. That was the first crack. Then came the second. A few days later, a relative mentioned that Claire had already tried this sob story with someone else. She had sent almost the exact same message, word for word, claiming she had nowhere to go and needed one last chance. That person had rejected her. Suddenly, it all clicked for Linda. Claire wasn't reaching out because she had changed. She was reaching out because she had run out of people to use. And finally, for the first time, Linda saw it clearly. She didn't hesitate anymore. She blocked Claire's number. Then, she turned to Jake and me and said, "She's not my problem anymore." It was over. Claire didn't take it well. A few hours later, Linda got one last message, an email, a long, rage-filled meltdown. Claire called her cold-hearted, ungrateful, a traitor. She accused her of choosing strangers over her own blood. She lashed out, throwing every guilt trip she could think of, trying to claw her way back in with anger since manipulation hadn't worked. Nobody responded. For the first time, there was no dramatic family explosion, no arguments, no flying monkeys coming to her defense. Just silence. Claire had finally lost the only thing that had ever kept her afloat, an audience. And then, at the next family gathering, something happened that I never thought I'd see. Linda stood up and in front of everyone admitted that she had been wrong. Not just about Claire, about everything. She admitted that she had enabled Claire for years, that she had ignored every warning sign, that she had dismissed me, treated me unfairly, and let her favoritism cloud her judgment. She took responsibility for her role in the chaos. No excuses, no deflection, just accountability. And for the first time ever, I believed her. Because Claire had come crawling back. And this time Linda was the one who shut the door on her. I didn't have to do a thing.